Hey everybody, it's Bill. Before we get started with the autopsy, I wanted to jump in and talk about who gets the place on our wall of detectives for this mystery. I'm not sure if we've been completely consistent with the last few, but I'm excited as the mystery runner to look at the people who gave in questions, queries and theories and decide who was the best detective. Before I get to who the actual king of detectives is, I would like to go over a couple of honourable mentions. I was very impressed with Ash Webster, who was maybe a little bit too caught on my Orient Express red herring that was not intentional, I do assure you, but did key into the mechanics of the murder and was very good at spotting Daniel DeHoog's role in the murder and their motives and who they were. And also provided us with a picture of their notes, which always gets you great brownie points. Also honourable mention to Miranda Fair. Couldn't fully identify the place that Daniel had in the mystery and also forgot what the murder weapon was, but had a very good insight into Jake's character and the mechanics of the killing. Also honourable mention to Carla Bermudez, who had originally thought that two people were doing two separate drugs into two separate drinks, but in a very interesting way. Had a very good handle on Jake's character and their role in the mystery, and an early correct guess at Daniel's identity. Also, one of the few people who really thought hard about embezzlement as an aspect of the mystery, but slightly misdirected. Still very cool to see. And then just before we announce the actual best detectives of the arc, I would like to give a very big shout out to the victim, Keith Moser, who as an avenging ghost gave in a few theories and, sure, may have started out with a secret ex-wife having plastic surgery to appear as a flight attendant and a secret son popping out of the woodwork, but after a few episodes had a perfect recreation of the crime, pretty much down to every detail. Very impressive ghost sleuthing Keith Moser. But our detectives of the mystery, the people earning their place on the wall of detectives, are a team, Trevor and Michelle. After episode 3, they sent in a pretty much spot-on guess for all of the details of the murder, or at least all of the details that were possible to know by part 3. I was very impressed. It was clear, succinct, to the point, and they very much earned their place among the beautiful detectives who have graced our wall. So congratulations, Trevor and Michelle. You did it. You're the detectives of the arc. You're on the wall of detectives. All right, everybody, enjoy the autopsy. See you later. Welcome to Solve This Murder. I'm your medical examiner, Bill.
And I am your coroner, Dani.
We're here doing an autopsy.
That's what coroners sound like, yes?
Yes, everyone. This is an autopsy of our last mystery. We're doing it as a separate episode this time, because of the way
We've done that before.
We have done it before that way, and sometimes we don't. But this time it's a full different episode.
I think we've got a lot to talk about because we did things pretty differently
This was the Inflight
time.
incident. This is the first murder mystery I took charge in writing and running, and you got to play, and you got to feel my pain of how difficult it is to solve these things.
Of course, yeah. It's very interesting being in the role. And how did you feel about the writing role?
So, I really enjoyed the writing of it. I was worried, and this is just a writing thing, or like a mystery thing, it's a puzzle thing as well. We have the same thing when we talk about puzzles in Escape This Podcast, things like that. To me, you look at the stuff that happened on this flight, and you go, well, is Daniel DeHoog 100% done? Day one, get out of here.
Absolutely. Like, I've told you that before Solve This Murders. I've told you this before Escape This Podcast.
It's just like, oh, this is so obvious.
Yeah.
It's like, his drink smelled funny. There's 2 broken vases that smelled like poison in the thing. Daniel DeHoog was the only one who went into the bathroom.
Oh, look.
But none of this is so... but it's like,
I will grant
I know
you
what is true.
That part I got quickly.
But then, yeah. But that was interesting, right? Because I had like this clear... I feel like the poisoning thing, in terms of like opportunity for poison, develops pretty quickly. But then doesn't answer the question of, he wasn't killed by poison. He was killed by a blow to the head.
Yeah.
So I have that sort of as like that's to me was like, that's what makes it a tough mystery.
Absolutely. And look, I say, well done. I think that the planned murder that goes wrong and needs improvising is a really good choice as one of the settings.
It worked well.
I enjoy those a lot.
I liked it. I think it went well. The one element of the improvisational stuff of the murder that I would love to go into now that didn't really get fully covered is the idea of like what his worry was with the smashed poison.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
To me, there are two elements to it. Because his plan was, spoilers if you haven't listened to the episode, I've already spoiled who did it. The plan was, I give him these two separate poisons.
Mm-hmm.
One will be a cyanide poisoning. And the cyanide poisoning takes like an hour or 2 hours.
Sure.
Right? So if he dies 24 hours later of cyanide poisoning, there's no way you can trace that back. Like, you wouldn't think that happened on the plane. Because it takes
absolutely.
2 hours to do, right? So you're like, oh, it must have happened afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, clearing Daniel de Hoog or Vandross Brown from any kind of scrutiny. It's like, well, he last saw him hours and hours and hours before the poison could have been delivered.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the plan. And that's great. Now there's no, because he doesn't want scrutiny because he's been embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars from his company.
Potentially ill thought out, as this would have been still immediately in or before the big audit, potentially placing some suspicion there.
But at least
not
pushing
him
it away from him
personally
personally.
at that point.
Then on the
he
plane,
would have had no means.
On the plane, he knows one of these these glasses has smashed.
Mm-hmm.
And the two options are, as you say, that he doesn't die, in which case everything's going to go through. It would be better that he dies.
Mm-hmm.
Or he does die of poison on the plane where it was very clear about the poison. Like, Daniel could be traced to that poisoning fairly easily. So his ideal was to kill him, ideally with something from somebody else's bag.
And to get just suspicion off the idea of poison whatsoever.
Gets a suspicion of poison and gets a suspicion onto someone else. Like, if it had been revealed early on that Jake owns the murder weapon, it's like, look at Jake. He's an ex-employee. He's got, like, these are all small town people who know each other. It's like, the idea was he should die now in a way that is not the poison that could be tied to me. He needs to be died from a weapon that could be tied to somebody else.
Yeah. And
searched around. And I think that little element I liked.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yet completely threw me as just a slight element of randomness, and the idea of panicky improv murder should have an element of randomness. That makes perfect sense.
I want it to not be too planned.
That apparently just completely broke my brain.
I think if I had the capacity to add an element, I would have had, and I do in general, but I don't anymore because it's done. I think to lock that certainty in a little bit more, I think especially for you, having some moment of like, there was a moment in my notes where Jake talks about Daniel and says, like, oh, I tried to talk to him about something, or I called him, didn't. I could be like, we were trying to talk about, could mention that he saw him reading by torchlight at some point, or like, I was reading my book, I had my torch, I was reading my book, but I think maybe I didn't want to give away the torch part, because then it's like, oh, I have the murder weapon. But maybe I could have made that come clearer earlier, or he could have stumbled and slipped up and said that, but then you go like, oh, he saw him reading by torchlight, so he knew that he had a big, heavy torch, or he'd seen something that maybe gave him that idea of like, I showed him the things in my bag. I showed him the plans in my bag. I took my, what
I would have done, my thought of it, just because it probably wouldn't have worked for many people. It just happened to work for some of the questions that I asked. I asked about them coming onto the plane and like the order they came onto the planes. It could have been like, oh, Jake dropped his bag and Daniel helped him pick it up again. Just noticed that it was heavy.
Yeah, just anything.
Something like that.
Because to me, I wouldn't have thought that you would want it to be so definite. I like the idea of it. He was searching randomly trying to find something. That's why I had the searching element of the papers being, which I think I added too late by accident. I intended to have that happen a bit earlier, but it just sort of didn't flow in.
Sure.
But like, I like this idea. He was desperately searching for something in somebody else's, like, because he wanted to pin it on one of those two. But maybe it would have made more sense for him to have noticed it and then tried to enact his plan.
Yeah,
but I think in my head it was so like last minute. It was just like, I'm going to set something on fire. I'm going to get a distraction. I'm going to find something ideally in someone else's bag.
I think that murderers have photographic memories.
That's it.
Every one of them.
Because it was hard to, because otherwise it was like, because this wasn't the planned part of his murder, I didn't really think about like, oh, and how did he plan it? I was like, he didn't plan it.
I totally get it.
But you got very caught up in like, you needed to prove that how could he have known? It must have been planned and deliberate. And I thought I wanted to have a bit more randomness.
I don't even know how much of it was that, and there may have been that, except that it was a pile of papers that
maybe I should have focused more on his
innocuous.
Bag instead of the papers.
I think that
I think
might
if I had said
have
his briefcase,
maybe that, that's clearly someone is searching bags.
Yeah, I think that would have completely like you would have got searching bags as opposed to stepping on papers. I think maybe that's a wording thing. We get this sometimes in escape rooms and other stuff. You say the wrong word to describe something and it throws people off on tangents and following red herrings.
This was clearly what it was
I
for
think,
me
yeah,
here.
you got so caught up on the fact that they were papers, whereas to me it was they were just a thing in his space.
Yeah,
and it showed that
that
his
he
space had been messed with. His space had been invaded. Someone had been roughly in the same way that if you're in someone's study and their desk that had all these papers neatly, there papers strewn about everywhere, you'd be like, someone was searching this area, they were searching the desk, they were opening cupboards.
Sure, but typically in that case, they're looking for a specific piece of paper.
You're right. I should have mentioned the bag over it. I liked having some of these characters, like I liked having Jamie Sutherland as a character. I liked having a murder mystery person who just wanted to...
I'm offended that there was a murder mystery person, but it wasn't the initial murder mystery person.
I know, that was so much fun
to
me.
Hell?
Because I also wanted to use them to prove that one of them was pretending to be a murder mystery person. I thought that was clear, obvious from the start that he had no idea anything about...
Definitely.
And I'm glad that you picked up on that.
Yeah, that's
it was me.
Definitely the first thing that I have written in my notes about him.
And I like that, and it throws some silliness. I think, I enjoy trying to tie these things together, right? With he's
what
under
were Jake's
a false
big plans?
Oh, if you could, I think, so I play tested this with some of our $50 donors who got to play it before it was released.
Yep.
They got more information about Jake's plans. They were talking to him before the murder happened. So I mentioned this to you in passing.
I was going to get into the differences between the playtest.
Yeah, so as soon as he came up to shake the hand and went back, Keith was still alive. They just left and went to follow Jake and started talking to him. So he described his plans. He showed them his plans, and it was it was just for something.
I was concerned
that was very specific to cattle farming and transportation of logistical things. This also, motive-wise, I think was something interesting that I expected you to pick up on or to notice that I don't think you really sort of mentioned, which is if Jake Hudgens ostensibly has a motive to be he fired me, to be mad at him, sure, he might kill him. But when you talk to Jake, his real passion seems to be, I want Keith Moser to buy my inventions and to give me, and to set this up.
I think he made that pretty clear.
Yeah, so it's for him now, a dead Keith Moser is completely true, but it's against his stated interests that Keith Moser's death may have been pushed by revenge, but in terms of the practicality of what he does, all he's been trying to do for ages is try and get Keith Moser to get these things done. The killing to me is the ramifications of it are bad for Jake.
Yes.
And
assuming he's not lying.
Well, true, but assuming at some point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to assume everyone's telling the truth, do I?
No, but a bit maybe Keith Moser, you didn't check his ID, did you?
Wait, Keith Moses?
Yeah.
I 100% checked his ID. What are you talking about? That was the first one. That was the first move I made.
But yeah, so I didn't mind that for Jake to try and to make it. I wanted there was a lot of stuff pointing to Jake, and playtesters found the same thing, that he had an interaction, he was the one who was most obviously doing something during the fire.
But the anti-motive.
That's
fair.
And then just I think just people, I don't know, there's something about Jake, I don't want him to be a murderer, so he's not.
Oh, no, that's fair.
But I like tying in that Jake gives you this clue. I tried to link clues a little bit more for in my notes. Not more than anything. Just was trying to link clues. I like that Jake sets up this idea that Heath doesn't know faces, doesn't recognize people, but he knows names. So then when you find a name, it can direct you back to Heath.
Absolutely.
He didn't know his face, but he does know a name. What could he know? Just that association, I think was nice. Yeah. And that to me felt more puzzle designy than mystery designy.
That's true.
And I like laying those sorts of lines.
I like that because I did say early on, it felt like Heath knew everybody on board. The only one that he didn't, the only odd one out was Daniel, but he has specifically pointed out that he is bad with faces. So if it was a less consistent recognition, a one-off in some way, then
he may have seen him.
That was exactly how it was.
And that's exactly right. That's exactly, and I liked that, and I liked that I had a side story that added to that. I liked having Jamie there to just be for both comic relief as a character, but also to be almost a hint system of player two, the hint system of hey, maybe think about this person. Oh, here's anyone of those motives was completely wrong.
It's in the Nancy Drew games having George and Bess on the phone.
Yes, she's the George and Bess, right? She's oh, maybe it was this person. She gets really excited about it. I don't the one thing I don't, if I could rewrite this, I would add something more concrete, is, so I was trying to come up with a murder method for this mystery.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted something that was actually at least a little bit real. And I found an article. So I was Googling for like poisons that could like mix in a way that could delay them. I was just like, that's what I was trying to search. So, the FBI came and knocked on the door.
Because, they typically, like, the idea of slow-acting poisons, that's a thing that you see in these.
But I wanted something that was like
of an interaction
either slow or
change.
faster. And so I was looking, and I found, and I can quote the article. I'm not going to link it, but I'm going to cite it here for you. An article by Boggled, Peck, and Thompson in the Postgrad Med Journal, 1990, volume 66.
Who even knows if cyanide still works that way?
Page 40 to 41, and it was a case study of someone who had taken enough acetonitrile to kill them, and I think it did kill them in the end.
Oh, okay, great.
But they had also drunk a lot of acetone, and it postponed what would have normally been a few hour onset period by 24 hours because the acetonitrile had to interact with all the acetone. And then once that was done, then it started breaking down into the cyanide.
It's very much like when you've accidentally drunk antifreeze, have alcohol.
Yes, you take alcohol to stop methanol poisoning. Yeah. Similar sort of thing. And so I found that and I thought, well, that's perfect. I've got these two things.
Does that mean if you just drank enough acetone, you might eventually be okay?
You can probably keep drinking it till they can pump your stomach or something.
Something like that.
So there was so I had this case study. I was like, great. And the one thing I don't like is that I never really thought I didn't get enough detail down in how does Dani know that is a thing. In the end, I used Jamie as I'm a murder mystery person. I'm not super happy with that because Jamie is also a suspect. And I think as soon, like, if you had any suspicion, not suspicion. If you had any suspicion around Jamie, you wouldn't ask her or you wouldn't trust her. Or,
I very much had to do that. Eventually, like, I didn't do that with any of the opening characters. I wasn't even telling them that there was a murder, that I was even talking about murder. I just went, plain negligence, done and dusted. But by the time I got to her, I went, cool, this is not going anywhere.
Yeah, you have to
I have to talk.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, like, what would you think? Like, what do you reckon is a better way? Because with our playtesters, they found the poison stuff later on in their investigation.
Okay.
And so at that point, I felt more comfortable with them just saying, as a private investigator, you would know, here's an acetone thing, here's an acetonitrile thing. So I gave them the information. But because you found it so early, I didn't want to tell you that.
Of
I
course.
wanted to then find another way to give it to you, rather than just this as a private investigator or as an investigator. But I didn't have a clean way to do it. Maybe that's where you would do like a call in with Simba, you add that back in or something. Or I was toying with the idea of like when you search his bag, you find the paper, but that's like nonsense that someone would bring the paper that describes their method of murder.
I appreciate the cut-offness from professional stuff in this and having to do it in here. I like that, not having to worry about, fingerprinting anything
this
or whatever.
For me was helpful as both from a design point for me and knowing that it was your first one to play. I wanted to make it super tight. In fact, I can actually show you. So I have a lot of notes for this one. I may actually, go back to making these available for people because I think they're written out quite well.
Oh, okay.
I just have to type them up.
Oh, God, that's going to be
But I think I might do that. But you see, so I
think all I would have done potentially to push towards that more is when Jamie started bonding with you over crime stuff, specifically
she should
go
mention
into
poison stuff.
Agatha Christie being a huge poison buff.
You know what I should have done? I specifically have a thing with Jamie that she knows you and she knows some of your previous cases.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of coming up with some off the top of my head, I should have said she talks about your cases and specifies like, oh, and I love all the times you solve this murder. Poison murder, I'm obsessed with poisons. I know, like I love a good poison murder. When you solved the Baron's suicide that was actually the murder by the Baroness, oh my God, I love a good poison murder.
I like my career.
So like, I think I should have done that. I think rather than keep it vague, that's where I would have added it. In fact, if you're downloading the notes for this, I may have already changed that and added a little note there. I think that's a good way to get it. She should introduce herself in the context of poisons. But when I introduced her, I don't think I had thought then that she was going to be the one who was definitely going to give it to you. Because for my playtesters, I'd given it to them for free.
Yeah, sure.
But I kind of hadn't decided where. So I think that's a good thing to do for her. But yes, so my notes, I've got a lot of notes. So I have a page of notes.
Oh, it's ridiculous how much you have.
For each character, where I have like a few, and it's not like typed up, it would be half a page, no more. But it's effectively a couple lines about them and just what they will say and talk about. And then a little table underneath of what they say about each character. So, for example, if I turn to Taylor Heath, he's got the whole notes are business manager for V, that's victim. That's why you can't look at my notes.
Yes, I know. Oh, trust me. I have said many times, I understand that.
Overseas details.
It's tempting, isn't it?
Yeah. Overseas details of old companies, as well as new deal to purchase Compute Global. After deal negotiated, will spearhead audit intercompany. Stuffy, no humour, well-dressed, still friendly. Didn't end up very friendly, sorry.
Yeah, he was fine.
Can recount the time for most events. If you were one of those, I have, if you go back to my events, I have all the events, 2 p.m., 2:10, 2:30, 3:30. I've got times that they all happened.
On a plane, I don't think about time.
No, but I always ask about time when I'm playing, so I wanted to have it there for you.
I think it was also, I worry more about time when I was not personally present.
True. And then knows that the victim orders 2 drinks all the time, calls it the Big Horn Special. And then I have, in his table, V for victim, wonderful man but all big picture, known habit and routine, doesn't hate but makes enemies easily. None of that really super came up specifically, but I don't think we had a, tell me all you know about Keith. But we got the thing.
I got a little bit of that
out. Killer, because he is in my notes, Killer, a.k.a. Daniel DeHook. So that's why you couldn't look at my notes.
Well, I was also going to ask, for me, I have V and M in my notes because I don't come up with names. Even at the very beginning, I tend not to come up with who the murderer was for quite some time after I've established the setting and everything. How quickly did you come up with what the murder was?
Well, I'll go back to my initial notes in a second. I just want to finish reading through Daniel DeHook, Taylor Heath. So under Killer, he doesn't recognize him, but thinks he could be familiar, doesn't know his name, does know his real name. Nervous guy, because I didn't name these people. So name-wise, they didn't have names because they were all Patreon names for the first time. So I didn't get them till I planned the whole murder. I just filled them out, left blank spaces. Nervous guy, former employee, stalking victim, won't take no for an answer. Old woman, Mary's mother, thinks of victim as son, strangely obsessed, doesn't think she has anything to gain from the will, but doesn't know, does have allergies. He used to organise her meals. So Taylor used to organise meals for her when she was. So does know, can confirm, definitely has a tomato allergy.
Okay.
In the playtest, I accidentally said that wrong and gave her a lactose allergy and him a tomato allergy. Didn't affect anything at all, but I had to note that my notes were backwards whenever I went back to it. And I was so careful not to give them clues.
Yeah.
Like, wait, she had a lactose allergy and now she's got a tomato allergy? For the flight attendant, slow, chatty, wastes time, probably bungled people's orders. Old woman is sloppy with allergies, but multiple people means it was the flight attendant's fault that people had to go up and make a deal of it. In the end, I didn't make any. It didn't really come up.
Wait, say that again? Old woman sloppy with allergies?
Yeah, so saying that Lacey never keeps track and doesn't fill in allergy cards. So of course she would have to go up and say something. But the fact that 2 people went up means it must be the flight attendant's fault. It didn't really become an issue, and I'm glad because it was a bit silly. And singed my papers with her dress. So that becomes, and I like that we had. Nervous guy has a bit of I saw the fire. So, did it happen around then? And he gives the defining thing of bang, she must have been on fire before she got to me.
Yes, I felt nice about that. That felt like,
and that's a use of physical evidence, but isn't lab evidence. It's just situational evidence, and I liked.
Yeah, and I feel it's the sort of thing that Agatha Christie books use, not necessarily with Poirot digging into it directly as I did, but the implication of he said that he saw fire. Maybe he meant smoke, but he said he saw fire.
And he could only see the fire.
This.
And so that kind of pushed it back to near Daniel, which to me was, again, I hope this isn't so obvious. Well, Daniel did it. But even then, there's so much around him. And then a last column for councilwoman, old business rival from way back, entitled, lazy, hates V and would love to see him fail. So I have this written up, and I have that for everyone. So everyone has their own bit and then a bit for everybody else. And I like that because that's kind of how these interactions go. So I really enjoyed these notes. And I think they're the kind of thing that people would use to run the mystery themselves.
Yeah. Were you thankful that I didn't check bags too early?
Well, the playtesters checked the bags quite early.
Oh.
And do you know what I did? It actually was great for them. They checked the bags, but they did it very just like we would like to look in bags because they didn't have as much evidence yet.
Yeah.
And so what they did was they went, check blah, blah, blah's bag. They found that he had the murder weapon. Oh, no. Or they found the batteries in the murder weapon.
Oh, okay.
They checked. So they knew from early on that he owned the murder weapon, but not that he used it, just that he owned it. Searched other. When they searched Daniel's bag, it was, so Daniel opens his bag. He takes his wallet out of the bag, puts it in his pocket, gives you his bag, and you see the fancy clothes. There's no ticket to SleuthCon. Ooh. And then they're like, okay, well, now we've got to come back later when he's not looking to see if...
What was his plan running to the bathroom?
He was going to just run past you and stay in the bathroom, hope you didn't notice. He didn't have much of a plan. He just wanted to not be there when you were searching bags because he didn't know what to do. So he just tried to be like, I'll just get past you.
All right, gotcha.
And just like maybe throw his ID in the toilet and then come back and be like,
that was what I considered.
I've got no ID. That probably would have been what he did.
I thought that was what his plan was.
But yeah, that was another one that didn't get brought up. You never distinctly asked, and I'm not saying this is a problem.
No.
Yours, you never distinctly asked Maggie, can you tell me stuff about Daniel? You said like the situation with but never like just tell me about Daniel. What do you know about Daniel?
No, sure.
Because the thing that she had here, which I liked, was that he quickly used the bathroom, and also he refused to pay for things on the flight by credit card. Only used cash. Also does he does seem very well off. But does my watch and his clothes. Maybe he's an eccentric millionaire or something. But I like that. So he was trying not to give identity stuff and just pay in cash and do all this other stuff.
Yeah, I'm more a fan of it was Lacey who brought this up, wasn't it?
And
I like that because Lacey doesn't have the hugest role in this, except
nice to have
being
something,
affable. That's the word I want, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that her attempting to be affable towards him gave these clues, like him not responding to his name.
Yeah, I like that. So my notes for this started, right? Very first thing I did, murder mystery brainstorm, setting, modern, cozy, limited space cast, transport, locked setting, tram, cruise, flight, murder on a flight. Next line. I have a vague picture of like a plane.
Yep, solid.
Got some ideas. Who's dead? Why? Victim is, originally I called him Arnold King before I decided to use people's names. I'm Arnold King. Rich. And literally, look, who is dead and why? Victim has dossiers on all other passengers. A passenger denied they are going to SleuthCon but has ticket. Victim is Arnold King. Rich, 50-something, death could be business desperation-based. Also opens avenues for old grievance motivations. Greed, competition, anger, publicity. So these are all the motivations that did make it in. And then Arthur King. 3 ex-wives, 2 successful businesses, 1 beautiful horse. That's what I got to first. Then I had a full page for him. And this was still brainstorming.
Wow.
And this is where all his information is. Bombastic businessman about to buy new business. Inherited cattle farm, auto parts, computer security, about to buy. Doing full investigation into company, we'll find out about illegal dealings. Motive, _ That's where I was like, that's going to be the true motive. So that'll be the real one. The other ones are still, that will be fake. 3 ex-wives, Cheryl, Mary, Bunny, gave him the details.
Can I just say?
Note, not too relevant.
Can I just say, I have my notes, the first notes I made, so I drew out the plane thing. I wrote down that seats C4 and E3 had allergies. And I wrote Keith, horse, 3 X's, 1 archaeologist.
Yeah, not irrelevant. Not
Boy,
relevant
did I
at
think
all.
that she was going to be the important one.
Nope, didn't matter. It was Mary, the religious one. 1 beautiful horse, no school on Sundays, retired stud, won a lot of races, never came up. Gets up to use bathroom, possibilities for poisoning, confrontation, change in demeanour. And there was a little bit. He was feeling sick and clearly been sleepy.
But that could have been from drinking acetone as well.
True.
At that point.
Later, Dani gets up, returns, and victim is dead. How is he dead? Poison? Allergies? Someone swapped allergy into food, hope the crew is blamed. Someone poisoned him, maybe hoping he wouldn't die until off-plane. Again, at this point, I didn't know that was a possibility that I could play with in the way that I did. Makes sense, as you wouldn't want to be involved on small plane, right? You wouldn't, because they're such a small thing.
Of course.
Might then take someone else's object to use as a weapon, framing them to make poison not noticeable. Violence but no struggle. So that ended up all being in there.
Yeah.
Then poison angle might be too similar to Styles.
Oh, I mean.
Because we had just done Styles. Poison too weird, maybe more physical murder makes sense. And then went, wait. I literally wrote wait in my notes. This is how I take notes, everybody. I write my brainstorming notes like I'm talking to myself. That's the only
totally,
way.
I
So
get that too.
I've written, wait. Acetonitrile, cyanide poison, acetone,
Definitely
delay
do the
cyanide
same thing.
onset, brackets, Bogle, Peck, Thompson, Postgrad Medical Journal, 1990, 66, 40,
I just say,
41.
you've read Death in the Clouds, right?
Yes.
Do you remember anything about the murder?
Nope.
Okay.
The small dart?
I mean, there's
Is it
this
dark?
thing. Sorry, spoilers for everything. Like, this is the thing. The idea of it being a physical murder, yes, but the idea of was it up close, was it ranged?
Oh,
is
there's a dart
left
thing
nebulous.
or something?
Well, the initial thing is there is a bee that is let loose on board,
Oh, a bee.
and so they're trying to make it seem like she died of bee sting. But then, yeah, also a blow dart is left somewhere
Nice.
to make it think that someone blew a blow dart at her.
But it turned out to be a close range thing?
Exactly.
I love it. Yeah, these little like...
Yeah, the blow dart being a thing that's seemed like it belonged to someone else on board to frame them.
There was a writer on board. Yeah,
exactly.
It's great.
Who had written about blowed out poisons.
Yeah, it's fun stuff like that. So that was kind of like a non-planned version of that. Like, we'll grab his light and not. And then yes, vomiting beforehand in bathroom, goes into coma, killed to frame. And those are cyanide poisoning symptoms. Vomiting and then coma are the two steps. It's like you get nauseous and vomit. That was why he went to the bathroom. Comes back, basically starts to fall asleep, falls into a coma. That's why there's no struggle when he gets hit.
Yeah.
And then I've written method, tick it off. So I've got method and motive. I then have a little cast list where I didn't know who these people were, but I just wrote out like Detective Dani, a cool private eye, victim, over-the-top businessman, Keith Moser, once I find the name, killer, computer scientist, posing as true crime enthusiast, ended up being a fake crime enthusiast, but whatever.
That's okay.
Pilot, aviation info mostly, didn't leave cockpit, no personal connection. Co-pilot, as above.
Sweet.
They're there, I didn't want them to be characters.
Good.
Flight attendant, gregarious, nosy, has timeline info and gossip. Not really seen through, but that's fine. Nervous guy, acts suspicious, owns murder weapon. That's all of my... Jake Hudgens, such a major character. That was my first line. Someone who's suspicious and owns the weapon.
Can I just say, also a total match for the Death in the Clouds blowed out guy.
Stop making me seem like a hack. Older woman, tries to do things for people, knows victim, mother of Mary. V's assistant, knows business dealings, is annoyed plus annoying. Councilwoman, knows people, sleeps a lot, owned auto parts, V ruined it.
Nice.
And then it was just, I went through the events. I have a timeline of everything that happens and generally what people are doing during those times.
Yeah.
So if you asked like...
Oh, it's so much
when
work.
I'm boarding, what are people doing? When he orders the drink, what are other people doing? Like little bits there, not always as we keep going. And then I put a couple extra notes here, which I was updating right to the end of no struggles, he was in coma. Killer didn't know if he would die, wanted to frame the nervous guy. Kay wants to help a bit to keep up sleuth persona. Didn't end up doing that. I probably should have. I think it would have been fun if he'd been suggesting, like, maybe look at that nervous guy because he used the murder weapon. It would have put the frame angle more in your mind, and it's something I should have done, but I didn't. I have it in my notes to do it, but as you can see, I have too many notes, so I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
But I should have done that because I think that would have added that as that's why he used someone else's murder weapon. It was to frame them.
Fair.
If he had shown any inclination to frame. So I didn't do that, but I should have.
Now, there was a point where he was telling me, don't bother talking to Taylor
He
Heath.
was worried Taylor Heath would know who he was, or that you would see his notes, see that he was in the thing. He didn't want you to talk to Taylor because he was like, Taylor might know who I am.
Yeah.
Murder weapons found on body. Nervous guy has matching batteries. 2 glass vials are found shattered in bathroom bin. I only added that right near the end because I wanted something physical to tie into the poison rather than just a vague feeling.
I didn't, honestly, when I went through the bathroom bin, I didn't necessarily expect to find anything.
But I didn't have it
surprised.
initially. I added it at the end because I want something that you can find that answers those questions rather than just leaves them there as possibilities.
Yeah.
And then Kay's bag has credit card with different name, Vandross Brown. That's the other thing I should have done.
Oh, no, what?
It was fine in the end. I think it would have been more fun if he did have ID that said Daniel DeHoog, but he had one credit card that said Vandross Brown. So he had planned it more. He wasn't so bad at his job, but his credit cards weren't updated. It didn't apply for a new credit card, so they all had a different name.
Oh, maybe.
I think having 2 names rather than just all of his ID is under his real name and he's bad at his job, maybe it would have been more fun that way.
I mean, is murder his job?
But maybe that would have been better if you'd looked for his ID early.
Perhaps.
He gives you. He opens his wallet. He goes. He kind of holds it close to his chest, takes out his ID and hands it to you.
Maybe.
It's Daniel DeHoog. And then you'd be like, I think he has the other ID in there. I should try and find it later. Maybe that would have been. But because it was near the end, it would have felt like a stepping stone there's a punishment for no reason. Maybe. And then it's just person by person. I wrote their little first paragraphs. Then I went back and did all their connection paragraphs because when I was writing these, I didn't know who they were yet and got them all out. And I think it came together really well.
It's a really great amount of detail.
It's a good amount of detail. That's something we could put up for people to play themselves, I think.
Yeah. But I want to make that clear to people. How many pages of notes is that?
Of the actual mystery rather than just the brainstorm.
I mean, no, all of it counts.
Okay, all of it counts. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pages.
And Bill doesn't have small writing. My notes that I have taken were 1 page. So to make a solvable 1 page for the detective thing of notes takes 11 pages of work to go in.
Yeah.
It's huge what needs to be done for these.
I will also say, how long are when your mysteries, I think I just write more than you. I think I just write more than you because my solving notes are often like 7 pages to solve the mystery. So maybe that's just a difference between us. But then look, I want to put stuff in here because I didn't want to get caught out on like setting one person up to say something and then realizing, oh no, they shouldn't say that. They should.
I know, that's why I struggle so much.
Yeah, so I think it was nice to be able to sit and get that full planning out. And I would do that again. I would, having done that, that's how I would write it out again. I think it's a very smooth way to write it. But yeah, so look, I think it came together really well. And I've been really enjoying doing this autopsy because I never get to make fun stuff. I did a mini escape room for our million download escape room.
Million episodes.
Million episodes Escape This Podcast special. And that was fun. And these are nice. And I really enjoyed taking this seat for this mystery. I think I will do it again for our next one. I would love to write you another. And I think you've had to do, like, it's hard to be in the player's seat, right? And I think there's some stuff that, like...
The two things that I struggled with, in general, the picking up of clues and things, I felt great about. Yeah. The making little connections, love that. The two big tricky things is, one, the going around talking to people. I didn't mind it, making it feel like entertaining podcast material. I still don't think I'm there yet.
And I think that's one of those things where the transition that happened between episodes like 2 and 3, or maybe 3 and 4, was... And we talked about this between episodes.
We autopsy ourselves in between.
Was, don't worry about being so in character, be Dani. Like, and I think that for me works really well.
Rather, it's just, be fourth wall breaky, that's fine.
Yeah, go have a size to the audience. Yeah. Don't feel like when you say stuff you have to say it to the characters, say it to the audience.
It's a tough balance to find because it is a satisfying part of a lot of these murder mysteries to have the denouement, where the stuff that you didn't realize was going on in the detective's head was going on the detective's head. But I think
for our show, generally, it is so much more helpful to have the detective be talking with the audience. Like, this is what's going through my head. Like, not having the answer yet. But
you may be right.
And that, I think, is what makes the difference. And I think on your next one, that's what I would encourage. In the same way that we have our escape room players do the same things, like talk your thoughts through, talk about that, pretend the audience is your second person. I also found that during the playtest, we playtested with 2 of our $50 donors who played together. And I think that helps. And I wonder... Obviously, adding another person to the show wouldn't be bad. Or wouldn't be good. But I wonder if at some point it would be nice to have someone to call and literally just like, hey, here's the mystery.
To be my bouncer offerer.
To bounce ideas off.
That's interesting.
And I think we could literally have someone on for like one episode, like part 5 of every mystery is we call up a random person we know, we'd record the call, and you just say, hey, you're my assistant today. I want to bounce some ideas off you. And I think that would literally be very helpful.
I would be willing to try that.
I think we should try it. I think that's something that'd be interesting to add to the dynamic of the show. Because you've now felt what I felt, which is this moment at the end where you're trying to get your thoughts together can be really tough. And a second voice to just ask the right questions, I think, helps. But our problem is that the second voice knows the answers.
So did you notice that in the playtest, that they bounced off each other well?
Yeah, I think it does work well. Just to be like, they kind of could say to each other, wait, what's this thing? And often one person would have one explanation. Like one person could finalize the motive thing, but they never got the method fully correct. And the other person could get the method fully correct, but hadn't fully finalized the motive. So I think having someone to even just tell, it's kind of like when you need to teach. Yeah, it's like when you need to teach something, it makes you have to know it better. When you have to explain the mystery to someone, it can help. So I think we should maybe add the concept of like a phone a friend moment of like, I'm going to call back to the lab and get my assistant.
I mean, not an easy thing and the being trapped on a plane moment, but...
No, but adding that in. Because yeah, other than that, like you pulled it all together well. I think it's, if you did another one, I think you would absolutely smash it. And entertainment-wise, I don't think you need to worry. Especially, it's just like once you start talking to the audience.
Perhaps.
It makes such a difference.
And then, the other part is trying to figure out the good, appropriate, both for entertainment value and for knowing that you have things 100% sorted, figuring out how to say the ending.
Yeah, well, yes, I had to learn this to do a denouement. You have to do the denouement. I think this was like you had a moment of like where you could hear, I could hear, maybe you didn't notice it as you were saying it, but I could hear you like, your gear went tick, 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 dong, denouement mode. And you just started being like, well, here it is. Here's, let me tell you all about it. And then like, you did what I do, which is you get like 80% through the denouement and then you go, oh, but wait a minute,
I haven't figured out this.
Oh, dang. And you hope you're going to get it.
The parts that we have cut were before anything even vaguely like a denouement was me saying, I can't say anything yet. I just have to sit here in silence because I don't have everything. And then you kept telling me to start anyway. And so I did.
It helps.
I still hit the block.
But you hit it much later. But yeah, that moment that is the hardest part. It's like you can get a moment of like, I know it all, I've got everything, but it's like, can I rule everything out? Can I 100% this? And I think there were a couple little things we noticed, or like I noticed, like if you'd been given differently, like briefcase over papers, you could have really knocked that, like some of your questions out. And sometimes it is just bouncing ideas off. Sometimes you need someone to be like, but wait a minute, what would happen when after the, like, what's the actual ramifications? Not the hypothetical ones. What actually has happened now that he's dead?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Those sorts of things. And you just need someone to ask those questions.
It did take me a surprisingly long time to really get into that. I think the idea of the words business audit just glazed in my head. And
Whereas for me, I'm
not interested in that.
For me, I was like, I have said, there will be a very in-depth audit. Oh, we are about to start a very in-depth audit of all the financials to make sure the financials are in order. I thought I'd said it so much that it was so obvious that I felt like a fool.
I just care so little about money and businesses.
Yeah.
That it didn't work on me.
But yeah, you care so little about money and business that when you found the IT guy who was working with a company and suddenly has made all this money, you're like, well, he's a hired hitman. Which I did not expect anyone to go to. You just went, well, that's a hired hitman. So who is he working with?
Well, I mean, we did have... I was suffering from this huge issue of Daniel having all the opportunity but none of the motive. And that was
meant to be the motive. But you were like, no, that just shows that he's a hitman hired by someone. Like, no, that was his motive. The money is the motive.
It was a stretch.
He was doing crime. You were just like, that's it, hitman. You even said the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard, which is every time there's someone with too much money in an Agatha Christie novel, they're either a thief or a hitman. They're never a hitman.
I changed. I redacted my statement and said in mysteries, not in Agatha Christie's.
Name me one mystery with... Well, name me anywhere it's like a rule that, a guy with money in a mystery must be a hitman.
That's a job for the listeners.
It's just not a thing. As soon as you went on Hitman, I was like, how is this this was the motive and you've decided it was method. You decided it was just the way someone else... Oh, this proves he's the murder weapon.
I was full on. Lacey's daughter is still in the will to be put on the board after Keith's death. She had been helping people with their bags, so she knew there was something heavy in Jake's, and she hired Daniel to do the killing.
Which is funny, because in my head, Lacey, I was about to say, I think was my weakest person here, because I felt like it was so obvious there was no connection to anything.
Without her being the secret murderer. Yes, she didn't have that much to do, which is why I'm glad that I got some of the Daniel information from her.
I'm glad the Daniel information came from her.
Was there anything besides rich hitmen? Anything that you...
Rich hitman, you fool.
That I did that you didn't expect, or vice versa?
Well, early on, before you decided like to talk to the audience and to be Dani instead of Dani the detective character, that was tough because like you were talking, but you were only talking in character, so you weren't saying stuff. So I was like, has she noticed that this guy hasn't read Orient Express? Because you didn't say anything about it.
Of course, you can't read my thoughts either.
Because
I see.
Your character didn't want to call him out in time. It's like, that's the beauty of the aside, is I didn't know if you got the very obvious fact that he didn't know anything about Orient Express. And I didn't know if you got because you weren't saying anything. You were only acting in character. And I think that was really rough early on and hard to understand on my end.
That's interesting.
So I'm glad we kind of moved on from that after part 2.
That's fair.
And it's something that you should generally try. I think I had suffered the same thing in my first mystery. I was like, I'm Bill Billingham. And then I was like, no, I'm Bill Sunderland. From this point on, I'm just Bill Sunderland. I'm just solving a murder as me.
Totally. I warned you that I thought
you
that
rolled for character traits.
I suspected I would be more in character than out. I warned you of this before we started recording, that I just thought that would be how I would end up playing.
And I should have admonished you. I should have said, don't do that, please.
Noted.
Other than that,
did you expect me to go for the bathroom as early as I did?
No, I think that's fair. I didn't know when you would, but I knew you would.
Okay.
Because it's like there was a person who went to the bathroom and there was also another person who went to the bathroom. Once that happens, or like he went to the bathroom, clearly something happened and he came back.
Okay.
Like searching it is very fair.
Did you expect me to go... I won't say I went super in-depth, but I feel like a little more in-depth than other people would about, was this how he died? This hit to the back of the head? Because I'm going to investigate other things.
To believe it at the start. I felt like you look at the body and you're like, blood and a blow to the head.
I didn't refuse to believe it. I wanted verification because death by means that are not what they look like, absolutely a common thing. And based on how this murder went down, not irrational.
Oh, yeah, relevant. No, I think that's fine. I think maybe that's a very reasonable thing to expect, but there were moments where it's like, you just got to move on. It was kind of like I expected you to maybe Poirot it a little bit more, where he'll be like, oh, it could have been this, could have been that. Better look at the psychology. Because I'm not going to, what's the point of looking anymore? Could have been this, could have been that. You're just going to move on. Instead of being like, no, like maybe I can figure it out. But you never know how much that's going to be true. Like, because it also could have been that you could have searched one thing and I'm like, no, look deeper. You never looked deeper. You never checked his ankle socks for whether or not they were cutting off circulation.
Of course.
He died because all his blood's at his feet. Like, maybe I wanted you to look further. So I don't think that, other than that, like, I think you did everything really reasonably. You didn't do what I did, which is get too caught up on one thing and leave and just go off and investigate that without finishing the job. I think we've learned that lesson together. You were like, oh, I wanted to search bags. Like you said, like 2 episodes before you search the bags, you're like, I want to search the bags, but I should finish these interviews.
That's true.
And that was good, right? I think that's a smart thing to do. You didn't fall into the trap that I fell into because you saw me fall into it so many times.
My big worry is that I hadn't talked to Lacey or Jamie if one of them was the murderer and I'd gone through all of the baggage and all of the other witnesses and everything
found
first.
Their stuff. Yeah. And very fair and like a really smart thing to do. And it worked well for all of this. And it gave you a better idea of the sort of stuff. Like finding fancy clothes in his bag is not as meaningful when you haven't already had a discussion about, like, why does he have a fancy watch? Does he have this, that, and the other? Like, what's going on there?
It's very funny because finding physical evidence does feel more meaningful. And I think this is true in escape rooms. Lore and everything in escape rooms and the backstory of characters and things and putting that into puzzles and intertwining that is fun. I do not find it as fun as finding a puzzle and finding something tangible. And I think that was true in here. Like, for me, the bathroom bin was the absolute highlight.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, and I tried to add a few of those things in, and I also tried to specifically give context to those things in the discussion.
As far as murder mysteries go, it is good to find a little bit at the start and then confirmation through physical objects towards the end.
Yes,
and
I think
so
it worked out well.
It does. It goes really nicely in that as well. I'm glad that I didn't search the bags as soon as I thought of it, pacing-wise. I'm not positive, but I think that it worked out for me better.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's probably. Is there anything else to talk about with this autopsy?
The only one other thing, just as a small point.
Look how obvious it would have been if my notes had been on the table. Daniel DeHoog, eh? Let me just look at Daniel DeHoog. It just says killer in huge letters in the top left corner of the book.
You are very fortunate that I can't read sideways very well. The one other thing to think about, and this will be all of the stuff that gets edited out. And I feel like we got better at this, but it still happened a couple of times in the first episodes, was I started following little paths, little questions that weren't going to go anywhere. Like, I was really interested in this fire extinguisher issue.
You were very interested in the fire extinguisher.
A fire extinguisher is a big, heavy object, and it had been mentioned as where's the fire extinguisher? I very much thought that could have been an alternate murder weapon.
That is very fair. I should have, when you went to the front, been like, oh, and you see the fire extinguisher. It's been at the front. That's why he couldn't find it down the back.
Oh, maybe, but then I would have been inspecting that fire extinguisher, so it was good that we just left it.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I think it went really well. I really liked it. My question is, I was going to so I'm writing I want to start writing another one now.
Oh, good. Do you have an idea?
Well, my first idea is you get to SleuthCon.
Oh no!
And there's a murder at SleuthCon. But maybe I'll leave SleuthCon.
I can't deal with any more murder fans.
Yeah, I might leave that to be its own fun thing and move on. Now I will say there is one thing that you didn't do as a detective, which I will count as a personal failing.
Oh.
And I can't believe so. You did not officially invite Jamie to join your detective agency and become a part of your, as I did to every single helpful person that you ever supplied me.
Good point, but I did offer Jake millions of dollars in investments and manpower.
You did do that.
Whoops.
If you had to see one of these characters in a future mystery, who would you most love seeing pop up? Would you be like, oh my God, it's like you're in Haiti and you find...
Mr. Heath, he deserves a Haiti holiday.
Okay.
I like him. He's reliable.
He is. He's good. Heath's a fun character.
I like a numbers man.
His voice changed every time I voiced it, but I don't mind. So you have an American accent or a British accent?
A numbers man who just doesn't
accent.
seem interested enough in the other workings of people to commit murder on them.
Yeah.
That's great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this really long breakdown of the entire mystery and the writing of it. It's as long as one of the main episodes.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about it because it was the first one I'd done.
This was a really interesting thing. Well done. That role is really hard. I find it a real struggle, and you handle it admirably.
Was so much easier.
Really?
This was so much easier than needing to solve the murder.
Goodness.
Did you find your role in solving easier than running it?
Look, I still bizarrely had a lot of the same amount of emotional brain fatigue in moments. Like, edit it out. I have huge gaps where my brain just stops progressing.
I think you will have that less on the next one that you do if you don't have it, if you stay out of character.
Maybe. Fingers crossed that will be the case. But the constant fear of accidentally saying something wrong and sending you up the wrong path really gets to me in the other role.
I've got the path written down. You can't send me wrong. I can send you wrong. I'm fine.
Yeah, and that doesn't worry you?
Oh, you mean, I thought you were talking as a player. As was for when you're running it, you're worried about sending
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why that's why I wrote so many notes, is because I was worried about that, making sure that I don't say something that leads up. But I think what happened that I liked was I had more to me, very related, structured paths in my notes. So I wasn't as worried about, like, what if I say something sent you on the wrong path? It's like, no, I've got so many things pointing to these paths that I'm not as worried. But it is a worry. I think I'm also more comfortable
off mic telling me you screwed up.
Yeah, just being like, it didn't happen in this one. But if I said something, you went like, okay, so we know that actually, like, Lacey is in the will. We know that's 100%. Everyone's confirmed it. I would just stop and go, if I have made it seem like people have confirmed that she is in the will, I'm sorry, I must have said that wrong. Let me Jamie says she might be in the will. She actually has no idea. The only person who does know is, like, Heath, and he says no. Right? So I'm so sorry that you think, if you had ever said, like, we know this fact must be true, 100%, and it never happened.
No, that doesn't sound like me.
So yeah, it is a worry, but I wasn't as concerned.
Okay.
Because I just know that if it had happened, I would be pretty comfortable being like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know where you got that idea. That's completely wrong. I must have said something wrong, and just go back and fix it. And
then, so yeah, with you running this, I felt like I was in pretty safe hands as far as this goes. I didn't feel like you were going to screw up in any way or let me screw up in any way. But I feel like I was at many moments, especially during those long edited out silences where my brain stopped working, that I was fairly intolerable as a player.
The silence was tough to deal with because like you have when running like escape rooms and running for me, there were many times during this I had no idea what you were thinking. So I can't even sit here and be like, what should I do to fix this, or how can I, like, make sure? So if I was worried if I'd send you on the wrong path, I would have had no idea what path you were on. Well, talking more is helpful.
Again, off audio, I described this to you. We talked about it at the very start of the arc, that when reading whodunits, I will stop progressing until I've got my thoughts and suspicions in order. And that was exactly what was happening here. I was worried that if I kept talking out loud, you would encourage or discourage in certain ways, or the story would just progress because of something I did or said.
That's the moment
and I was worried.
Where you need someone to call. That's the moment where you need someone to help you talk it through.
Someone
because
who
you're
doesn't
like,
know.
I don't want any more input from Bill. I don't want him to tell me anything else about the story. I don't want him to hint at anything that could be true. I want no input from Bill. But you still needed to be able to talk it through. Without talking, you were stuck. Because we've seen so many people do this when solving puzzles. You have to just start talking it through or explaining it.
I feel like in very elusive ways, I have done this with you while I'm reading whodunit stories. I say, all right, hey, Billy, you haven't read this book, but I think that it is the person that is on this page right now. I won't give you names because you might read it. All right, I'm pretty sure I've got how they did it. There's just this one bit of timing that I'm not so certain about, but if this thing here is relevant, then it might make sense. I just got to keep going. I got to get, like, if I can find one more piece of evidence that confirms that, I'll be happy. And that will be how I read a book.
But I think that's exactly what we need. I think, like, that moment, and you were very good at identifying that moment. You could identify that moment in yourself. You said, this is the moment where I need to stop reading the book and think about it. that is the moment where we call up a previous guest of the show, a friend, a murder, like we just like, hey, Lan, Dani is going to talk to you about this murder for a second. That's what we need. And I think that would be good for the listeners as well.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fun dynamic. And I think with 100% legitimacy, that is something we should look at in the next
to be fun.
mystery.
I reckon she would enjoy it, and I reckon it could be podcastable. If we can get it with some good audio, my mum would love to take a crack at that. And I feel like detective calling their mum for advice.
I'm
That's a
happy
dynamic.
to. I think it would be perfect. I think we should definitely do something like that. I think it would work really well, and I think it would help you as well. So I think if we add that in for the next mystery, it's a perfect dynamic to get near the end.
We'll see if it's going to work.
But in the end, that came out well. I'm happy with it. I think it ran smoothly.
Glad.
I'm glad it was not 2 parts. I legitimately was so worried.
It's very scary, isn't
that
it?
you would start and just be like, because to me, it's like, yeah, everything
it says
points
killer
to the
right
It says
there.
killer right here. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Sorry, we've been talking for way too long, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed Solve This Murder coming back.
Thank you very much, Billy. You've been working on this for a really long time. You put a lot into it.
I really enjoyed having this as something I could write and put together and create and run. I was very nervous about it. And it worked out well in the end. So there'll be another one soon. I think I'm ready to write, and I want to see, as soon as this is like the next few days,
work to do.
I'll be doing this. Well, that's true. But I want to get another one written. We may not run it for another however long, but I want to start getting written. So
Man, I think it's the opposite. I think that we have lots of other work to be doing that just like for the next 2 weeks, we have other stuff to be doing.
Yes.
Then you should write. And then once you've written it, we can do it right away.
Exactly. So look, I think I am predicting, and I hope this is true, that at least for the near future, the period of these 6-month hiatuses is over. And we're not going to go back, I think, to every single week. I think there'll probably be a little bit of a gap between episodes.
Even you can see after one that was ambitious, right?
Oh, yes. But I would very much love to sit and write another one.
I'm glad. I'm really glad.
But I don't think there's going to be another long hiatus. I think we're back into fairly regular programming. So keep an eye out for when the next one's going to be out. Join our Discord is the best way you can keep up to date. And literally the best way you can keep up to date, tweet at us. Get on a Discord or email us and just say, hey, when's the next one coming out? And I'll say, soon. And you'll go, all right, sweet.
I've definitely sent that email a couple of times.
So, yeah, look, welcome back to the show. This was a fun mystery to come back to.
And, of course, thank you to the Patreon donors once again whose names were in this episode.
Yes. Do you remember them? Do you remember what all their names are?
Okay. Yep. Hold on.
Thank you to Patreon donors.
Keith Moser.
Yes.
Maggie Surnameless.
Yes.
Jamie Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Heath.
Yes.
Daniel DeHoog.
Yes.
Jake and Lacey. I'm blanking on
Lacey
surnames.
Morrow and Jake Hudgens.
Hudgens. How did I forget? Oh, God, that was terrible. Obviously.
No thank you to Patreon donor Vandross Brown. You don't exist.
Come on. If your name is Vandross.
If your name is Vandross, you've got to sign up for the Patreon.
Please do it. Yeah, I mean, you've already been putting the episode in advance. We did this one just for you.
If you want to help support the show, you can always sign up for our Patreon. Anyone who donates at any level can appear as an NPC in either of our shows.
Normally we do it for Escape This Podcast because that's the main one that our Patreon's been focusing on. Please sign up for our Patreon. Send us a little message saying, hey, solve this murder, please.
Yeah, if you say that, you'll be first dibs for Solve This Murder.
Yeah, totally.
So we got a few of them.
If you're an existing Patreon donor, same deal. Send us a message right now saying, I want to kill someone.
Or be killed.
Don't word it like that, please.
There's also other benefits. Our $5 donors get access to all our bonus audio. There is a new episode every week, either of Escape This Podcast playtests, of 2-minute mysteries, where Dani and I try and solve 2-minute mysteries. Look, can I ask you a favor? If you are just signing up as a $5 donor and you want to listen to the 2-minute mysteries, please go back to the first one where we're normal people and you can slowly follow our descent. If you go to our first episode, it'll be like, oh, let's look at this mystery. How could we solve it? I don't know what's going on. If you go to our most recent episode, it is, well, I'm a little man and I'm here solving mysteries.
You know them Evita songs?
Oh, what's going on here? A giraffe fell down a hole. Who could have guessed it? Please, it's so weird, but it gets there. It builds up. It makes sense. It's an existing law that grows every mystery. Are you the bow-legged guy? No, I'm Bertie Tilford,
Oh,
Daddy.
Daddy.
Please. Look, it all makes sense in context. You have to sign up and go back to the first episode and work your way towards these characters. You'll never understand our obsession with
$5
Nick the
donors and
Nose.
above. You get it.
You'll never
you're part of
understand
this
the Nick the
club.
Nose obsession unless you go back to episode 1 and you see him from the beginning. So that's that. And there's badges for our $10 donors and other fun things. And our $50 donors got to play this mystery before anybody else.
Yeah, they knew everything about it before I did. And they didn't email me with spoilers. How nice is that?
It's wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Spread the word. Tell everybody
Thank you so
that
much
Solve
to
This
those
Murder
playtesters
is
as well.
back, baby. See you later. Solve This Murder is created by Bill Sunderland and Dani Siller as part of the Consume This Media network. To find out more about all of our shows, you can head to consumethismedia.com. A special thank you to Jared, Devon and Whit from the podcast Advanced Sagebrush and Shootouts for creating our theme music. And thanks to all of you for listening.